What is the greatest comeback to an insult you've ever heard? A friend of mine in first year university had never really dated any girls yet. This dumb meathead that we were kind of friends with told him, when you do get a girlfriend, I'm totally going to uck her. He responded, if I had a girlfriend that would uck you, her cheating on me wouldn't be the issue. Not quite an insult, but I still think of this comeback to this day. I have 2 little brothers, and it was my dad's birthday, so the semi-extended family were all at a restaurant to celebrate. I had just graduated from my dad's alma mater, and my middle brother was currently a junior there. My youngest brother, a freshman, however, opted to go to state school. At one point my uncle said, so, youngest brother, how does your dad feel about you breaking the trend of our last name, men going to alma mater? My little bro thought for a moment and then said, well, he probably doesn't mind considering I also broke the trend of not being able to get higher than a 3.0. The table exploded, and my other brother and I just stared at each other across the table like holy up, did we just get brutally murderer? It's especially funny because my little bro was one of those shy high school kids who went off to college and came back fun and socially confident. I was hoping that development would happen. I just never expected it to stab me in the ucking face. My dear grandmother. She had a quick and savage wit. My fiance and I held a meet the whole family get together at my house. It was the first time his father met my grandmother. His dad was a large, physically intimidating man with a beer gut. He began telling stories to my grandmother about how my fiance was a mischief maker when he was young. Then told my grandmother how he would take off his belt and whip Joe for being bad. My frail little grandmother stares directly at my hubby's dad's tummy and says, your belt. However could you find it? Future father-in-law was gobsmacked. Gordon Ramsay asks his daughter on camera, so what's it like being the daughter of the most famous chef in the world? His daughter replies, I wouldn't know. Jamie Oliver's not my dad. Boom. Roasted. Random kid, I bet you can't see your penis in the shower. My friend, nope, only your mom's head. Yes, I know this comeback was taken from somewhere, but that doesn't make it worse. When I was in middle school many years ago, a bully was teasing an awkward kid about not being able to get girls and being gay and never being able to get laid. Another bully spoke up to the first bully and said, "It you ain't had pussy since pussy had you," and the entire class and the teacher started laughing. The original bully shut up. Update: teacher didn't start belly laughing with everyone in the middle of the class. This occurred between classes as students were coming in. Teacher definitely heard, definitely smiled, and stifled his laugh. IRC, he said, knock it off boys, time for class to begin. Nobody clapped. No principal came in and clapped. This happened 30 years ago. Bully 1 is a police officer now. Bully 2 is a semi-truck driver. Awkward kid is a mechanical engineer. Lunch lady got me in front my whole class. Tuna fish was for lunch. I said tuna fish, I'd rather a red sandwich. Without missing a beat, this 80-year-old lady fires back, wait right there, I can make you one in the back. Needless to say, I went with the tuna. Was jokingly asked out to eat informal prom in front of whole class by a popular girl who definitely had no interest in me. I, without a moment's hesitation, say no thanks, Lauren. I have standards. Whole class and teacher lost it. Sitting in a bar at 3 AM off of Bourbon Street. The windows are just open shutters. Dude who just left the bar leans in on our table to shout at some friends still in the bar. One of our group makes a silly / snide comment. Dude leaning in smacks the table with an open palm and says, "Everybody who ever loved you was wrong." Then he walks away without looking back. We still revel in that story. Edit. It was Harry's Corner at Charters and Umain. Also, for those of you saying how cruel this was, it was all said in the good-natured camaraderie that can only be accomplished by drunks at 3 AM. We took it as a great insult in good fun, and all of us, including the insultee, just howled with laughter. Edit 2, my first precious metal. Thanks. During my university days, I ran into a friend/acquaintance of mine, and I was holding a Green Lantern graphic novel. My friend introduced me to his current girlfriend, and the first thing she says to me while shaking my hand was, "Aren't comic books for kids?" And I replied, "Aren't those A-cups for kids?" Honestly, I was in so much shock that someone I just met would say that to me that I replied on instinct. Still my greatest comeback ever. I was playing spades one time and a guy tried to lead the game off with a spade. I told him he couldn't do that. Spades have to be broken first. He refused to play by the rules, so I refused to play. He started singing, "The wheels on the bus go round and round," to imply that I was acting like a child. He asked me, "Do you know why I'm singing that?" I said, "Yeah, 'cause I'm taking you to school." Teacher asks a tough question. Jimmy says the correct answer. Karen, lol, you backwardly such a nerd. Teacher, be nice to him, Karen. He could be your boss someday. Jimmy, it backquotes okay teacher. I have no interest on being a pimp anyway. Whole class losing their minds. Today in one of my classes we were working on a project about careers, and one of the kids shouted, "I want to be a male stripper." The teacher responded, "I think you might be missing some of the qualifications for that job." Edit. The student was male. Similarly, I was making jokes about this one guy in my class, just going back and forth annoying each other. Then I was like, "You don't even know what you're doing. You're gonna have to sell yourself on the streets." And my teacher overheard and Edis went, "But who would pay?" Just out of curiosity as to how good this actually was, for years, I was told that my sort of comeback was the best thing that anybody had ever heard, mostly because I was the quiet kid that nobody could get a rise out of. Naturally, because they couldn't get a rise out of me, everybody tried to get me flustered by insulting me or framing me for things that no teacher ever believed, because it was never the quiet kid. Essentially, I walked into class one day and the teacher wasn't there, but this other girl, S, was up at the whiteboard writing out a long running joke about our teacher that pissed him off. It was about his assigned teacher number, and 2 years of developing a joke is a bit hard to explain. It became a bit of an inside joke. Either way, I sat down, she finished, and the teacher came in, noticing what was written on the board. He asked who did it, and immediately, this girl and a few of the girls around her said, "Severin did it." Note, we were about 15 at the time, so they should have been beyond this. I don't know what it was, but something made me wordlessly walk up to the board, fix her spelling and punctuation errors, and then sit down. Only when I had sat down did I turn to the girl who'd done it to say, "I have standards." The class collectively lost their it, including the girls who hadn't seen it coming, and the teacher laughed so hard he went red in the face and cried. To me, it seems like they just found it so funny, because it was me, because I don't see anything particularly special or savage about it. Here's my favorite self-burn. In high school math class, a nice, nerdy guy named Richard, a jerk whose name I forget, let's call him Jerk. Jerk keeps calling Richard Dick. Like, "Hey, Dick, did you get the answer to 4?" Richard keeps calmly saying it's Richard. Finally the teacher says, "Richard, what do you prefer to be called?" Richard says, "I prefer Richard." Jerk says, "Well, I prefer Dick." After a few seconds of uproarious laughter from the rest of the class, Jerk realized what he said and sunk as far down in his seat as possible and never bugged Richard again. We were teenagers in the 80s, so this was the height of hilarity. My former friend was 12 years my senior, and she fancied herself pretty heavily. She was okay, but I doubt anyone was losing sleep over her. Dressed way too young, trying to hold on to her youth. One day she pointed out that I was overweight and dumpy looking next to her. I'd finally had enough. She made these comments often, and I said, "Well, what about you?" "Excuse me?" She snapped, "I have the body of a 22-year-old. Well, give it back, you're stretching it out." My buddies and I were in college, and walking back from a bar fairly late in the evening, a homeless man kept annoyingly hounding us about giving him some money. This college town has a homeless community reputation, so we are used to it. Anyways, he followed us a block or so, and exclaims, "Oh, So you're too cool to give me money. Where do you think you're going ignoring me like that? My buddy's single word roast looks back and says home. It took us a minute to realize how bad he just ended this man's whole career. Still talk about it to this day. This wasn't an insult personally, but it was a comeback on behalf of a nation. My father is Irish, and he used to work in California. One day a particularly condescending colleague complimented my dad's work by saying, "I never thought I'd get to meet an intelligent Irishman." To which my dad replied, "Hopefully someday I'll be as fortunate with Americans," which went completely over his colleague's head. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. If you would like to see more, feel free to subscribe.